Hey there, English, grade 11 university. Let's do some questions and answers. So, I've got quite a few answers for this one. So, I'm just picking a couple of them, by the way, because I don't want these to be 40-minute videos, right? So, if you didn't get on the list, I'm sorry, you'll get on next time. Anyway. So, first answer I've got here is Macbeth wants to know his future, and since his prophecy of becoming king became true through his own meddling, he believes the witches. Macbeth's unstable mental state and his reliance on the witches might give him a sense of security and the ability to prepare for the future. Yeah, so this is a very insightful answer because that whole idea of Macbeth wanting security is very important here, right? Macbeth wants to be able to feel like he's in control of the situation and that nothing is falling apart, right? So that's why he perhaps goes to these witches when, again, clearly they're witches, right? They're not people you should trust, but he does anyway. This other person wrote, in the first time Macbeth and Banquo, when they see the witches, Macbeth was more interested in the witches' prophecy. After that first prophecy they told Macbeth became true, Macbeth became Thane of Cawdor in the second prophecy after he killed the king Duncan. Dankin. Don't make that mistake. And that became true, so in this situation the witches became sources of prediction of the future in Macbeth and his six-suited advisors. So this is a good point as well, right? Essentially Macbeth had these witches earn his trust, right? Because everything they've said so far has come true. This person wrote, he was interested in the witches because he believed them. What they said was prophecy. First day, when he saw the three witches, he was excited by them. After he became Thane of Cawdor, he believed everything they were saying. Finally, he starts asking him about his future. So again, the same thing. They've got his trust, right? So he trusts these women unconditionally. This person wrote, Macbeth was initially stunned by the witches' prophecy, but he trusted the witches. For these reasons, they predicted the witches that Macbeth would be introduced as Thane of Cawdor. The witches told Macbeth that he would become king in the future. When Macbeth realizes that he will be king, he is moved by his ambitions and he begins to dream of becoming king. So that's more for the first prophecy. We're more interested in the second prophecy at this point, right? But again, that initial thing about becoming Thane of Cawdor, right, is a key part to earning that trust. By the way, guys, if you want to submit your answers to me like this, right, just writing it on a piece of paper and sending me a photograph, I have no problem with that. If for the final essay or next week's reflections you need to do that because you don't have access to a computer, go ahead and do this, no problem. And this person writes, I think Macbeth trusts the witches because he is brainwashed. If we go back and see the play at the beginning, when Banquo and Macbeth meet the witches, their reactions tells an important insight into their personalities. Banquo is a fright. He didn't trust the witches, but Macbeth starts or flinches and seems rapt. I think you mean apt. Then, especially after the first prophecy of the witches came true, that's when Macbeth became king. He puts all his effort to the witches. Secondly, he is not well educated. He is just a soldier who is called a warrior hero. So his being uneducated made him trust the witches more and find out what his future is going to be. So, good points. I wonder what you mean by brainwashed. Do you mean that the witches are sort of wiggling their fingers at Macbeth and casting a spell at him to make them trust him? Because you could make an argument for that. I mean, they are witches, right? But, you could put it the other way, too. About him being not well educated, he is a king, so by the standards of medieval times, right, he would be more educated than others in that he can read and write. But you are right, he sees the world as a soldier. He's not really good at thinking perhaps in a sophisticated way, right? So maybe the fact that he's not wise is certainly a part of this question here. Then we have question 2. Let me make that a little bigger. There we go. Why did Shakespeare put in the part with Banquo and Fleance and all of the kings, including King James? So let's see. This person writes, I think Shakespeare just wanted to write whatever he wanted. He is an entertainer and made the play as captivating as he thought suitable and open for discussion. I assume he added how great the king's lineage will be so he wouldn't get decapitated for insinuating that King James's ancestors' bankroll were not so noble after all. This is a good point, right? Shakespeare does not live in a democratic society. If you made a play insulting the king, you could expect, consequences, right? So none of Shakespeare's plays are against the king, right? And if he had made a play that's against the king, he might have gotten in troubles, right? So this person is probably correct when he says it's probably a good idea on his part to make sure he doesn't say anything bad about the king. See what this person says. The entire story of Macbeth is quite dark and does not have any high-spirited moments. I believe that this scene was put in to add some enlightenment to the play. Interesting. The fact that he used real character in his play may have been a move to heavily connect with the audience. Doing so would remove an element of randomness and could potentially access certain emotions of the audience quickly and easily. I do not believe that Shakespeare was greatly influenced by the king and not offending or kissing up to him in his agenda. Plays back in this time usually carried satirical political themes. Smaller plays would usually be more open to criticizing kings through comedy, whereas a large play like Shakespeare's may not have been forgiven by the king of the time if he had found it distasteful. Yes, this is, again, a very good point, right? Going against the king at that time, right? Not a great idea, right? You don't have freedom of speech. It is a monarchy, right? So this is a very strong point. So it seems none of you are convinced that it's actually trying to insult the king. Okay, fair enough. And this person wrote, Shakespeare appeased King James by filling Macbeth with biblical imagery and various allusions to witchcraft, which are known to be King James's interests. So that he would be given opportunities to make himself rich. I don't know enough about King James. He is the King James of the King James Bible translation, so he was obviously very important and religious and everything like that, but I don't know what his opinions on witchcraft were, so that's something I can't really comment on. But nevertheless, you guys are doing a great job, and I'm thinking that this online class stuff, it might actually be working. I don't know though, you guys tell me. For now, however, we are going to be powering ahead, so for tomorrow we're going to be turning to Lady Macbeth, right? So the scene that we're going to mainly be focused on is Act 5, Scene 1, right? So Act 5, Scene 1 is probably the most important of the scenes that we have here, right? So that is going to show us a very different Lady Macbeth, right? So that's up to page 215, right? So let me just put that on the screen here. So tomorrow, read to page 215, right? If you have not already, right? And we'll be taking a close look at Lady Macbeth and what's going on with her. We are almost finished the play, guys, and we're almost finished the course too. If you haven't registered for Quad 4, you should, right? Because it is going to be going, and I think this is working, right? It might not be working as well as the class, but I don't know. I feel like I'm achieving something here in the front of this camera. You guys may feel differently, but that's my feeling. Anyway, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Thanks for writing. Just as a quick addition, one student I noticed asked me a question. If you were Macduff, would you also have sworn seek revenge against Macbeth? If Macbeth had killed my own family and everything, I don't have any kids, but I guess, I don't know, my family had been killed by someone, yes, I would have sworn revenge. I would be like Macduff and I would say, let's go get 'em! Or something like that. See you tomorrow, guys.